You've heard the name Woodstock, right? Of course you have. But the story you think you know? It's probably not the whole story. Back in August of '69, a music festival was planned. It was supposed to be a simple, ticketed business deal. But what happened instead was the birth of a temporary city, a cultural landmark, and something that came so close to being a historic disaster. Let's get into it. So you hear that quote from one of the organizers, and you can just feel the panic, can't you? The roads were shut down for miles, they were flying in performers on helicopters, and nearly 10 times the number of people they expected were flooding in. The whole event was teetering on the brink of total, absolute chaos. It was a pressure cooker just waiting to explode. But it didn't explode. In the middle of all that chaos, something truly remarkable happened. Instead of panic, instead of violence, the 500,000 people who showed up created their own functioning, peaceful little society. So how? How did this business deal, this disaster in the making, become a legend?
To really get it, you have to start at the beginning, with the 4 young guys who cooked the whole thing up. And let me tell you, they were a very unlikely team.
Okay, so on one side, you had what you might call the capitalists. John Roberts, an heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, and Joel Rosenman, a fresh out of Yale Law School grad. These were the money guys, the Wall Street types. And on the other side, you had the counterculture. Michael Lang, who ran a head shop down in Miami, and Artie Kornfeld, a VP at Capitol Records. These were the visionaries, the guys in buckskin jackets who knew the scene.
And here's the wild part. This iconic symbol of peace and love, it started as a get-rich-quick scheme. No joke. Lang and Kornfeld first went to the money guys wanting to build a recording studio in Woodstock, New York. But Roberts and Rosenman had a different idea. They basically said, you know what, forget the studio. Let's just throw a huge concert. We could make a fortune.
Yeah, about that fortune, it turned out to be a little harder to get than they thought. As the festival got closer and closer, the whole plan started to completely unravel. Just look at this timeline, because it is absolutely nuts. We're 5 weeks out, okay? 5 weeks, and their original location in Wallkill, New York, bans the festival, kicks them out. This sets off a mad scramble to find a new spot. With only 4 weeks to go, they finally locked down a dairy farm in Bethel, owned by a guy named Max Yasgur. That left them with just a few short weeks to build an entire festival city from scratch before the crowd started pouring in. So on their new permit application for this farm, they had to write down how many people they expected. And this is the number they put down for their absolute wildest, most optimistic guess. 50,000 people. They figured, hey, best case scenario, we sell maybe 100,000 tickets. Keep that number in your head. But what they didn't count on was the power of word of mouth. Through underground radio stations and alternative papers, this thing became way more than just a concert. People started calling it a pilgrimage. They literally abandoned their cars on the jammed highways and walked for miles, all drawn by this idea of the music and of finding their tribe.
And this is how many people actually came. Not 50,000, nearly 500,000. An entire city's worth of people showed up to a dairy farm that was prepared for, at most, a small town. The scale of the miscalculation was just staggering.
This led to the single most important moment of the whole festival, the exact point where the profit motive had to die for the event itself to survive.
I want you to imagine this. It's just days before the show. The site is already swarming with people who got there early. The construction foreman walks up to the organizers with an impossible choice. He says, look, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough guys, we can't do both. So what's it going to be? Do you want fences to collect tickets, or do you want a stage for the bands to play on? I mean, the choice was pretty obvious. They had to build the stage. And so, that's when this announcement was made. That quote says it all. The business plan was dead. The organizers were going to lose a ton of money, take a big bath, as they put it. From that moment on, Woodstock wasn't theirs anymore. It belonged to the people.
So what happens now? No fences, no security to speak of, supplies are running low. What happens inside this accidental city of 500,000? How did it not just completely fall apart?
This is what's so fascinating. Look at this. For every single crisis, the community itself came up with a solution. There was no food. Local farmers and townspeople literally started airlifting in supplies. A torrential rainstorm hits, people just shared whatever cover they had and started playing in the mud. The governor was threatening to send in the National Guard, but on the ground, people were the peacekeepers, sharing what little they had. It was like something out of the Bible.
And at the heart of this whole cooperative spirit was a commune from New Mexico called the Hog Farm. They were flown in to handle security, but they hated the term police force. Instead, they called themselves the Please Force. Their whole tactic was just gentle persuasion. They also ran the free kitchen and set up freak-out tents where they'd calmly talk people through bad acid trips, just reminding them, hey man, it's gonna wear off.
And of course, there was the music. That was the glue holding it all together. I mean, from Richie Havens, who got pushed on stage first and had to improvise his legendary song Freedom on the spot, to Santana's breakout performance, The Who playing Through the Sunrise, and Joe Cocker's iconic set in the pouring rain. It was just one legendary moment after another.
So how did all this chaos, this beautiful disaster, become the defining symbol for a generation? Well, let's look at what the rest of the world saw.
If you were on the outside, looking at newspaper headlines, you saw a disaster. One paper declared, "Traffic uptight at Hippie Fest." It looked like a public health crisis, just total chaos. But for the people who were there, it felt like they were proving something. They had created a working city based on peace and taking care of each other.
And you know, the most powerful validation came from the most unlikely person you can imagine, Max Yasgur, the conservative, Republican farmer who owned the land. He got up on stage on Sunday and delivered this incredible speech, telling the crowd they had proven that their generation could gather peacefully. Coming from him, that was a huge moment.
And then came the end. The sun is rising on Monday morning. The crowd is smaller now, standing in a sea of mud and debris. And Jimi Hendrix takes the stage. And his version of the Star-Spangled Banner, all feedback and distortion and fire, it was the perfect summary of the whole thing. It was a protest and a patriotic anthem all at once, connecting the peace of the festival to the turmoil of the Vietnam War raging across the world.
When you boil it down, Woodstock was an accident. It was a success that was born from a series of complete failures, a for-profit company that only became a legend when it was forced to become free. And it really leaves you with a question, doesn't it? Was Woodstock a unique moment in time, a perfect storm of music, culture, and chaos that just simply can't be replicated?